Hello, Groove Funnel users. This is Mike Witt with the 7-Minute Groove. It used to be the 2-Minute Groove, but that wasn't long enough. I put links for this video down in the comments, and also if you're a new Groove Funnels user, I have a sign-up link. So the problem I want to address today is a problem with Groove Mail. So I had this form with the heading and some links and things like that, and I used this in a previous video. So we're just going to reuse it. So I'm going to go to Groove Mail, and they've added this dashboard, which takes a while to load for some reason. All right, get started with Groove Mail. It says no data, even though I do have data. So I've created a little form in here called Test Form. In Test Form, has name Test Form, and it just has an email and a first name, which is the default. So if you go through this, it's going to do a single opt-in. I'm not sending an email, and it's going to put the results in test list. So when you save that, you can then go to Get Code, and I want the raw HTML code, and copy. So what you're supposed to do with this is, first of all, I want to save this code. We're going to use it in a minute. So I'm going to bring up an editor, which is Notepad++. I'm going to paste this code in, and it comes out all in one line. But this editor has a little tool called XML Tools that I can go in and say pretty print, and it will format it for me. So we'll look at this in just a second. All right, back to the page, and I gotta wait for this again. Okay, then go to my site. Software development is fun. And then I want to add this form. So I go to Elements, and you go to this little code embed, and you take it up here and drop it. Now pay attention what happens when I add the code into the form. So I go to the little gear, I Control V for the code, and I click Save. What happened is a lot of things changed. We have a heading, it got bigger. This text length, the text color is no longer the same. Let's look at it in the preview. So this has changed the styling on the form. So why is this? Let's take a look. If we go into this, well, let's look at it in the editor. It'll be a little bit easier because it's formatted. If we look at this code, we have an HTML form that starts and ends here. But then below that, we have this link to style sheets. And it pulls in this app.css style. So this style sheet is getting pulled into our page and is changing other things on the page. And that's a little bit of a problem. So to solve this, what I'm going to do is create my own form and then have it do what this form does. So let's do that. So I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to go to Elements, and I'm going to find the form right here. So I'm going to drag an empty form onto the page, and then I need two input fields. One is for the email, and another one is for the first name. And I didn't put it on the form. You have to be careful that it goes into the form. Because if I look at this one, let's look at this one, you can see it has form container, but this one did not. So I need to drag that and get it into the form. All right, now it's on the form container. So the first thing I need to do is name these the same as what's in that code. So let me show you what I mean. So we have two inputs that are important here. One is for the email and one is for the first name. So the first name has a name of first name. the email, if we scroll out here, has a name of email. So we need to keep that the same, otherwise this won't work. So I'll bring up the email field, and I'm going to add a little bit of space to the bottom just so you can tell the difference. There we go. And then I'm going to go to configure, and I'm going to call the ID email, even though I don't think that's required. And then this email, and the placeholder text, I'm going to say enter email. And the placeholder text is just going to show up in the input field as a kind of a prompt. So I'm going to add the validation rules so that it will validate that a valid email has been entered. And I'm going to not allow it to be empty. Okay, so it says enter email. I'm going to do the same thing with first name. And it's formatted as first underscore name. First underscore name. The placeholder could be enter first name. And we'll add the validation rules. We'll say its input type is text and it can't be empty. And we'll update. Now let me go to the email and back. I've seen this little problem with first name. I don't know why it does this. It truncates some of the information that's entered. So name underscore name. I'm going to update it again. And I'm going to go away. And it only seems to happen to first name. So that's a little weird. So now we need a submit button on the form. So go back to elements, back to the forms, and here's a submit button. And what a submit button does when you put it on a form is it submits the form to the server, which is what we need. And I'm trying to get it into the right place. It doesn't really matter though. There, now it's on the form. Okay, so the submit button is just going to submit the form. It doesn't matter anything about it. So then what we have to do is we have to tell the form what to do. So let's select the form. And if we go back to our code in the editor, we're going to see the form has an action which has a URL and it has a method called post. And so post just says to send everything on this form to this URL. So we need to copy the URL. Control C. And then we'll go back here. We're on the form container, so we need to go to configure. The form action is defaulted to integration, but we want to change it to post. And then paste in the URL. And we want to enable form validation. That way if something's invalid, it won't actually submit it. We'll click update. Then we have to do one last thing. And that last thing is that if we look again at the code, we had our inputs, which are the email and the first name, but there's also these other inputs which don't really mean anything to us. There's this form ID, there's an app URL, and a form submit type. And an IP address. And so these are what they call hidden fields, but they get submitted with everything else. So we need to put these on the form too. So I'm going to copy these. And the way you put these on the field is just what we did in the first place, which is to put in this embedded code little doohickey. Code embed. So we'll put it right below the submit button. And we'll go to that gear. And we'll paste in those little inputs. And save. Alright, now this should actually do what we wanted to do without changing the styling on the page. So I'm going to save, and I'm going to publish. One thing I forgot to mention on the form settings is when I did the single opt-in, there's also the success page. And I just have that set to google.com. So when you submit the form, it's going to land on google.com. You usually set this to a thank you page. Okay, here's our page. I'm going to select an email. I'm going to select my first name, and I'm going to submit. And what I didn't mention is that on the form, I'm just sending it to the google.com page when the submit is complete. So that is it. Our form is submitted. So I hope this proves helpful in keeping your forms styled the way you want them to look, and that you can use this to send email like on an opt-in page.